The Leave Your Legacy podcast is supported by Wise Financial. Wise Financial is a Northwestern Mutual private client group member. For over 20 years, Wise Financial has dedicated its efforts to designing comprehensive wealth management strategies for business owners and many accomplished athletes. Through their efforts, Wise Financial has been recognized as an industry-leading firm. The Northwestern Mutual Life Insurance Company, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Hello and welcome to the Leave Your Legacy podcast. I'm your host, Kenyon Murray, and today we have a return guest to the show. He was on our show last October, super busy this last year, so let's take a look at what my guest has been doing.
Jordan Montgomery, owner of Montgomery Companies, is a highly regarded performance coach and keynote speaker whose clients include business executives, sales organizations, and entrepreneurs. From small-town Iowa to a dominant force in the performance coaching industry, Jordan travels the country, speaking on the main stage for dozens of Fortune 500 companies. He is also known for his continued work with championship sports teams across the country. In addition to his work speaking and coaching, Jordan is an accomplished business leader who has managed top-performing sales teams in the financial services industry. Jordan resides in Tiffin, Iowa, with his wife Ashley and his 4 children, Audrey, Claire, Olivia, and McCoy. Today, Jordan is going to share powerful and practical leadership lessons that will help to drive results and accelerate growth. So please welcome to the stage, Jordan Montgomery.
A husband, a father, motivator, CEO, and to me, most of all, a friend. Please welcome Jordan Montgomery to the show. Jordan, how you doing?
Hey, joy to be here, man. I'm doing well. We've been talking about this for a while, and it's good to be back.
Yeah, it's awesome. I think, it's been less than a year that we've been doing the show, and you were one of my first guests. And so I thought, going into season 2, you've been doing a ton of stuff here. So we're going to cover a lot today, and 2023 was huge for you. So what's been going on with Jordan Montgomery Companies and how you guys have expanded and kind of what's been keeping you busy?
Hey, before I say anything about Montgomery Companies, we're on the Leave Your Legacy podcast. Come on. And it's been fun to watch this thing take off and your family take off and all the change and the impact. So, man, I'm just honored to be on, and I feel like I get to talk to you all the time, but this is just a different format. We get to do it in a public format. So
yeah,
for us, man, it has been a busy year. Probably more on the personal side than on the professional side. But one of our biggest gets this year was we got Kenyon Murray as a coaching partner and speaker.
Okay.
So that's been fun. In all seriousness, man, the team's growing. You're a part of that. I think we're up to 20 coaching partners and speakers. My wife's still running the business. Yeah. I'm still running my mouth. It seems to work on most days. So, yeah, man, just speaking, coaching, God continues to open doors. We continue to have opportunity and just really, really grateful for it.
Yeah. We were talking before the show, and I was like, I wish I could remember all these quotes. So I always have them written down. But there's one quote that really resonates with me. It's a Jim Rohn quote. It says, "You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with." So I know for me, it's changed. There's some that definitely remain the same. But who are these people for you? And one other add-on is, does it change as you evolve? Because we know that there's different chapters of life. So who are the people that you would say are your average people that you gain, insight, knowledge, all that kind of stuff from?
It's a great question. And I think if we're going to change who we are, we have to change who we're with,
Mm-hmm.
So that is evolving for me. I think as I get older, that continues to morph and change. I think about it sort of in 3 different ways. Part of this is like mentors, people I'm learning from.
Mm-hmm.
I say the two men in my life who I'm really learning from right now, in addition to my dad. My dad's always been a mentor for me and one of my best friends. There's a guy named Dale Mulliken at our church who's an elder at our church who's really just taking me under his wing. So we crack the Bible every other week at a coffee shop in North Liberty, and he's just been such a source of wisdom and encouragement. The other is Brad Lomenick, who who has really helped me in the leadership space. We run in a similar space, and so he's been really helpful to me that way. So there's mentors, then there's running mates, and man, I feel like you're one of those running mates, just one of the guys that I get to talk to and do life with. And you think about people who are going to call you up and hold you accountable, challenge you, encourage you. You're one of the most thoughtful and consistent voices in my life. David Nurse and Mark Wise. I could go on and on. I mean, there's a dozen, people in my life that way who I'm really fortunate to run with and grow with. And then I think about like mentees,
Right.
you know, because the best way to learn is to teach.
Yeah.
And so on some level, I would say it's our coaching clients. Like there's a lot of people that we get to pour into.
Yeah.
But I'm always amazed, Kenyon, at how much I'm learning from the people that we're coaching, you
Right.
know? And the people I'm learning the most from that I'm leading are my 4 children. Like kids can be the best teachers, you know, because they just give it to you straight.
Yeah.
And they're candid and just authentic and real. And so, you know, for me, that's been the circle. And then obviously my wife and best friend, Ashley, is a great source of candor and challenge, but also
accountability.
We're both, you know, we married 2 very strong women, Michelle and Ashley. So, yeah, it holds me accountable, and so, man, super grateful for her as well.
Yeah, we'll definitely talk about the family because I know that's a huge part of who you are. You honor your family all the time, and I think that's great. And there, you know, and there were some really great things that happened with the family this year too. But going back to the people that are around you, like one of the things Michelle and I talk about a lot is, you know, do we have, like, we look at it, do we have a lot of friends? It's like, it's different, like for different times. Like you were saying, like if we're talking basketball, like there's a certain group of people that I really like, you know, hash it up with when it comes to basketball. You know, when we talk about leadership and speaking and things like you're one of those I learned from. David Nurse is one I learned from. But it seems like, you know, for whatever we're doing that day, we tap into different people. Do you feel that the same way as far as how your life moves and with so many things that you have going on?
I think so, but I also think, man, I value the friendships that are multifaceted where you can have all kinds of different conversations, you know?
Yeah.
So that's one of the things I think I'm starting to appreciate about the stage of life that I'm in is I've got some friends, and you're one of them, that we could talk about a bunch of different topics with, you know, whether it's family or faith or sports or leadership. And so I also think for me, one of the things that's happening is like my circle is shrinking.
Right.
It's gotten a lot smaller.
Yeah.
And I think I'm starting to realize the difference between like real friends and deal friends.
Mm-hmm.
And deal friends, it's not like it's a bad thing. It's just if you really assess and examine your life, there's not many relationships where if you cut the string of our kids play sports together, or we work together,
right,
or we, you know, we're a part of this community group together, or we go to church together. Like if you cut that string, all of a sudden the relationship dies.
Right.
And then there's some of those relationships where it's like you could cut that string and it's still gonna be there.
Right.
And for me, the friend that I value most is a friend who calls just to check in or just to say what's up, you know?
Yeah.
And you're one of the guys that's done that for me. It's just like, I don't have an agenda. I don't need anything from you. I'm not asking for a favor.
Yeah.
I'm just calling to check in and see how you're doing.
Yeah.
And I would love to say I have dozens of people who do that. And I'd love to say that I do that for dozens of people.
Right.
The reality is that circle has been getting smaller for me, but I think that's a good thing. I think over time, I want to go deeper with fewer. Versus being, you know, an inch deep with 100 people. Yeah.
And I don't, you know, when you say that too, I think some people may take it as, you know, you cut people off or you don't include people, but it's not really that. It's one of those things where, like you said, there's, I don't know. I guess I look at it like this now in the situation we're in. We're always a little apprehensive of people because of why do they contact us, right? Obviously, we have this great platform. Well, I wouldn't say we. Chris and Keegan have a phenomenal platform that we've been able to utilize and do some different things with. But, you know, I don't want people to feel like just because we have a smaller circle of friends, that means that we don't care. It's just, you know, there are certain people that are involved, like you said, daily in our lives that we are more in tune with. But I think sometimes people take it as, you know, well, they're too good for us now because they don't call like they used to. But when you think about the chapters of life that we're in or the chapters of life that you're in, there's just certain people that you may not connect with as much. And, you know, I just don't want people to think that, you know, we're closing off our life. It's just, we're just doing different things because we got a senior in high school.
Yeah.
You got a 1-year-old,
yeah.
You know, so there's different things that we talk about and different things that we connect with. You probably connect with other people, other friends, because they are in that same chapter with family than we do. And I feel like sometimes people take that too personally when maybe the communication isn't as frequent as it used to be.
I think people do, and people always will take it different than you mean for them to take it. In other words, you don't want to cut somebody out. You're not trying to make them feel distant or put them on the periphery. It's just a fact of life. It's God's design that we can only spend time with so many people.
Right.
You know, you go back to like Jesus and the 12, there's a reason it was 12 and not 200. Like you can only pour into so many people and invest in so many people. And I think life ebbs and flows, and the real friends will understand the season of life that you're in and take it for what it is and appreciate the time that they do have with you. And yeah, the deal friends, again, it's not a negative connotation.
Right.
It just means there's a string, there's something keeping you connected to that person. And that's a good thing. Like that your kids play sports together.
Absolutely.
Or that you're in the same Bible study. It's a good thing. It's just to say that if that thing goes away, then the relationship changes.
Right.
Whereas you have maybe a handful of friends where it's like all those things could change. You could move 2 states away, whatever.
Yeah.
And the friendship is going to remain tight.
Absolutely.
And so, man, I'm appreciating those friendships in my life now more than ever.
Yeah, no, I feel you. But the one thing about you too is like you do have a lot of friendships. You have this aura that just pulls people in. We talked about it before, and we talk about it all the time. Like you're a person that makes everyone feel like they're important because in that moment you're very deliberate with your interaction, what you say to them, those kind of things. But the one thing I wanted to ask you is, how do you keep the energy up? I mean, literally, you're like the same dude. Dude, you got 4 kids, you got a wife, you got a business, you're running all over the country speaking, you're helping out Iowa doing the swarm thing. Like literally, like, how do you keep your energy up like that? Because you are one of those people that whenever I see you, you're the same, and you're always. I just want to know how you do it.
Well, first off, I'm learning to change and temper my energy. I think that's something I've had to work on because I do have a high drive, and I think I'm naturally an energetic, passionate, enthusiastic person. But I think with every personality style, there's gold and there's a shadow. In other words, there's a lot of upside.
Yeah.
But there's also some blind spots and some downside for all of us. It doesn't matter what type of personality style you have. So,
right.
Like for me, I think, man, I can be engaging and hopefully encouraging, but I also can be controlling. And so my wife would say, you got to temper your energy, like with our kids or in our marriage or when we're trying to make decisions.
Yeah, man.
Sometimes I'm in overdrive, and I've had to learn that about myself. Like it's not always good to be in 5th gear,
right.
And so Ashley would tell you that my energy is not always a good thing. But I'll give a shout out to a friend. There's a guy named Mike Foster who I just interviewed on our podcast, and he wrote this new book, and he essentially talks about the fact that we all have these questions that we're trying to solve for. Am I loved? Am I successful? The question I'm trying to solve for, which is a result of my past. All these questions are a result of our past. The question I think I've tried to solve for my whole life is, am I wanted?
Mm-hmm.
And it comes from a wound that was created actually from my mom, who I have a great relationship with today.
Mm-hmm.
So, but there was some infidelity in her past, and my parents went through this really rough divorce. And so I think as a high school kid, I was left with this deep question of like, am I wanted?
Right.
And what's interesting is, and again, credit to my friend Mike Foster, who we interviewed. He's a therapist, wrote this amazing book. He said, we have a gift that generally is a result of the question that we've been trying to solve for. So because my question is, am I wanted? I generally try to make other people feel invited, included, and wanted. So I think that's true for all of us, that there's something from our past, usually is a wound or there's a scar there, and we've been trying to solve for. And so that's I'm just being vulnerable with our audience. It's like, man, for me, my whole life, that's been a thing where I've wondered, am I wanted? And because of that, I think I am quicker to invite, include, and encourage. But I wish I could say that it wasn't connected to a wound. It wasn't connected to my past. Right. But it most definitely is.
Yeah, no, and it's interesting that you say that because I too have had that same wound where it was with my father, who my mom and dad separated before I was born. She was pregnant with me. And so I'm almost 50, and I'd been chasing this relationship with him for so long. I always said I'm never going to be the father that he was, right? I'm gonna go above and beyond. And it's no knock on him, because the one thing that I've really come to understand, especially when you talk about parents and maybe some what we view as mistakes that they made in raising us, is that they work with what they have. Yeah. He was raised a certain way. He received certain, knowledge and skill set. He saw what he believed it meant to be a father. And if you go back to that time, like, father was a breadwinner. You know, my grandfather was a truck driver. He would be gone all week, come home on a weekend. He put bread, food on the table, roof overhead, clothes on back. Like, that's what it was. And so that was one of the things that I know as Michelle and I got married, we had kids, like, I'm not going to be that dude. I'm going to be present. I want my kids to understand that. So we do, I think, like you said, a lot of our strengths come from pain, but to be able to turn it into something positive, that's a different thing too, because you can always feel sorry for yourself and do the same thing and not be that. So it's amazing. You know, I think it's amazing for anyone that can take that kind of pain and push it somewhere positive. And I think it's hard, and it's something that we have to learn and deal with, like, all the time. It never stops.
I think it's important to acknowledge that, you know, these questions, and realize where our tendencies and our desires come from. And oftentimes it is rooted in pain or a wound. And I think as parents, we're always creating wounds for our kids. You know what I mean? Like, advertently, inadvertently, we don't know, subconsciously. So we have to be thoughtful about that too. It's like, what questions are my kids going to ask?
Right.
That's something that I think about.
Yeah. So that's a great segue into some great things that have happened to you this year. I mean, your family's your universe. The one thing I love about you is I know when I can and when I can't call you, because if it's past a certain time, anytime during the week, I know you're locked in with the fam. Even though you sometimes try to give me 5 minutes, and I know you don't have it. So I don't want you to get in trouble.
Get myself in trouble.
But yeah, so you've had some phenomenal things happen to your family. Your family's grown. Family's grown. Yep. I'll let you speak on that. And probably the most, amazing thing happened just, a few weeks ago with the family too. Yeah. So just let our audience know about the Montgomery family in 2023.
Yeah, man, we've just seen God move in some crazy ways. Biggest challenge of my life, biggest challenge of Ashley's life has been our relationship with our two oldest girls, Audrey and Claire. So, for years, so I met them when they were 5 and 3. And I was really fortunate that I got to be dad in their life at a really young age. Mm-hmm. So they had a biological father who was still somewhat involved, but became more distant as they got older. And so, again, really fortunate to be the male figure in their life. And so when I got married, I became husband and dad at the same time. And now we have 2 younger children. So we have 4 children total. Yeah. Olivia and Mac. And but man, just this crazy journey, man, with a lot of twists and turns over the last several years. And for various reasons, I couldn't legally adopt Audrey and Claire. By God's grace, he brought us through a lot. Mm-hmm. And in June of this year in the Johnson County Courthouse, I got to adopt Audrey and Claire. And so they got to become officially Montgomerys. And we just got their birth certificate and their social security cards. And it's been the coolest thing, man. Like, just to watch them write that name out on paper. And we had this adoption party that so many people came to and brought them gifts with the last name Montgomery. And I think they're proud. It just confirmed what we knew to be true, which is they're Montgomerys, and you guys have your own adoption story with Demetrius, know, and the reality is we're all adopted into God's family. And we feel really fortunate to be the Montgomery family of 6.
Yeah. And you had mentioned too, like, just the name, right? The Montgomery name, because they had a different last name, like, that kind of, it didn't sit well with them, because they, whether in the way you knew, like, they're your kids, they're your daughters, but it was like, they didn't feel that because they had different last names. And I just can't imagine, kind of the turmoil that they were going to, because like you said, you became a husband and a father like that, and your dad. And I just, I think it's amazing, like you said, what has happened. And I'm just excited. I just think, it's super cool. And I saw, we weren't able to come to the adoption party, but the videos were awesome. The girls spoke. And so, like, what was the most touching thing that happened during that party that you can, maybe, I know there's probably a lot, but was there something in the party that really stood out? That you're just like, oh, that really hit me.
Yeah, I think, for one, it was overwhelming, and you did send a really nice message to our family about not being able to attend the adoption party.
Sorry.
So appreciate how thoughtful you've been, and I know you've been traveling like crazy. Number one, it was overwhelming just to see all the people that showed up for him.
Yeah.
And hundreds of people showed up just to give him a hug and to say congrats. So that part of it was just really special. I think Audrey and Claire both made me emotional. Putting their faith in the Lord, I think, in this season has meant the most, to us. Like, Audrey shared a piece of scripture on that day that comes from Jeremiah 29:11, which is I talked about, kind of famous piece of scripture that says, "For I know the plans I have for you, says the Lord, plans to give you a hope and a future, plans for you to prosper." And so she used that scripture, like she spoke and shared that scripture, and to watch our little girl navigate all that she's been through at such a young age, and to know that like her hope isn't in me as her dad or even in her mom's covering, like it's that she is a child of God, and she's putting her hope in that influence and that source of power and wisdom. And so for us, like as parents, and I know that you feel the same way about your 4 kids, like it's your greatest hope, is that your children would grow up to believe in Jesus and grow in their faith. And so that's been the most special thing, I think.
Yeah. You would think that I had this show scripted, but
that's good, man.
But no, being honest, so I was watching a sermon this last week, and it really touched me what the pastor said, and what I wrote down was the wilderness isn't where you live, it's what you pass through. And so as you speak about, your daughters and kind of the wilderness that they went through, we've all been there, and you've been there, and you've had dark moments, and we've talked about that before. But I really like, how has your faith helped you through that? Because the reality is, some people think like there's only going to be one time, like I don't want to ever go through this again. But God does put things. I mean, we have to go through storms, and to grow. And I think you've obviously talked a lot about it, but how is your faith, especially with this journey with your daughters, how has your faith gotten you through those wilderness?
Oh man, it's been everything, right now we're studying the book of James. And so, in fact, I was just reading this morning. So for listeners, if maybe you're a believer, maybe you're not, either way, go to the scripture. So James 1:2-4 is that scripture, that says, "Consider it pure joy when you go through trials of many kinds." And every time I heard that, I'd be like, there's nothing joyful about this. Like this is, what do you mean consider it joy? This is awful. This is terrible. Like I'm losing sleep. I'm anxious. I'm fearful. There's nothing joyful in this. I think what I'm understanding is like, man, joyful doesn't mean happy. You can be unhappy. You can not like a situation and still consider it pure joy. And I think the point there is like pure joy, true joy is having perspective and endurance and understanding and wisdom. And so like for me, man, God has taught me so much through the fire and through the trials. And I've been through a few of them in my life, and I'll go through a bunch more, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But there's this great quote that I love, that God's preparation is so often packaged as pain. And I wish it didn't work like that. Like, man, it'd be fun to get all the lessons on the mountaintop, and just have all the experience and wisdom that you need when you win. But the reality is like our greatest source of wisdom and perspective and endurance comes from trials. And I don't think it's that God causes them, but I think he allows for them to happen. And so I've just seen him move in these sort of impossible situations. And we've seen evidence of his grace over and over and over again. And I can look back now and go, okay, God, like you deposited in me wisdom, or you deposited in me perspective that I would not have today had I not been through these trials. Like, and my story, I went through this crazy trial in 2015. Which is more of a professional trial, lost a job, went through this wilderness that you're talking about, and it was just crying out to God, like, why did you allow this to happen? And I wanted God to reconnect some veins. In my heart, I wanted him to connect the professional veins, like put these back together, and he didn't do that. He connected some other veins and introduced me to Ashley. Like I met Ashley, she had 2 kids, and I think God was saying like, I'm going to do something in you before I do something with you. And if you're going to become a dad and a husband, then I got to deal with your ego and your pride and your entitlement. So not saying that he caused it, but I think he allowed some of that to happen so that he could refine me and prepare me for that next season. You know, like sometimes his preparation is packaged as pain.
Yeah.
And so I've learned to lean in with him more. I think I've learned to trust him more, and I'm still learning that. But man, our faith has been everything. Yeah.
Isn't it amazing to look back? So look back to 2015, because Michelle and I were talking about this the other night. I look back 5 years ago. Isn't it? It's almost hard to believe that I was that person 5 years ago.
Oh, it's crazy.
Does that happen with you? Like you're like, man, I can't believe. Like I think back to 2015. I'm like, I did what? I was doing what? And I'm just like, and it's not who you are today. And even in that, I mean, that was 8 years ago for you. Yeah, it was 5 years ago for me. And to see the transformation that's happening, which is really a short time. Like, don't you come back? I mean, it's just like I just like scratched my head. Like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I did that.
Isn't that wild?
Yeah.
But it's God's grace, you know. Like
right.
I think He's always refining us and renewing us. And like so, apart from that, I don't think we get to say like, how was I that guy? You know? Right. I mean, I think a lot of people are that guy, and they just continue being that guy. And apart from His love and His grace, I think I'd still be that guy. Here's one thing I'll share with our listeners though. Somebody's going through a trial, or maybe you're on the other side of a trial. I had a friend say this to me recently. He said, "You're most qualified to help the person that you used to be." And so I think about the work that you and Michelle are doing with WTF, you know, Worth the Fight. Yeah. And the way that you're helping people lean into their marriage. And like, man, you are so qualified to help the person
I don't know about
who's in that. I mean, but you are though. You are, man. Like, hey, this is not a small thing. Like you just recently renewed vows, right? You asked Michelle to marry you again.
Actually, I never actually did the formal, hey, get down on one knee, will you marry me?
But talk about this real quick. This needs to get talked about.
So when we met, it was just kind of funny. Like we've been together 25 years, married 24 years. Yes. And we just were talking over the phone when we were dating. And it was like, hey, what do you think about 9/11/99? And we're like, okay. So we went out and started looking at rings, and that's what it was. But because of where we are now, we've gone through so many ups and downs. I put her through so much crap, you know. So I'm blessed that God has allowed her to keep her heart open to me, to love me for who I am, for who I could be. And so, for our anniversary, which we've never gone anywhere as a couple for our anniversary, we went to Miami, and I had it all set up. I actually had a ring made for her, had it all set up, surprised her, got down on one knee. So it was, for me, it was a reaffirming to her that, you know, I love you. And like I told her, like the next 24 years will be better than the last 24 years. And you know, I know God has blessed me with her. So for me, it was just a way that I could honor her. All the kids knew, and they didn't tell her, which was great because I don't see how they kept it in. Even McKenna, who, you know, our daughter, but she was super surprised. So yeah, man, I mean, it's just a testament of one, God's love, God's grace, God's blessing, but then two, to Michelle and how she continued to love me, even though I was not the man I am today. Yeah, dude, I just really appreciate it. And I'm just happy that she found it in herself to stay married to me.
She's strong, man. God bless Michelle Murray.
No doubt.
She's amazing.
No doubt.
And somebody needs to hear that though, that is struggling relationally. Like if you're struggling in your marriage or God can do all things. Yeah. And I think about how you're being used now as an example to people who might be struggling in that moment. So the point is, you're most qualified to help the person that you used to be. In the same way, I think I'm qualified. I'm more qualified now to help the young professional who's moving too fast, you know, who's not dotting I's or crossing T's. Like I think I can just speak to that person and relate to that person in a unique way. And so if you're going through a trial and you're wondering like, man, why am I going through this? Like it might be that God's going to use you in the lives of many, or even in the lives of a few, or even in the life of one. To be an influence and a blessing. So
you know, and I'm gonna flip it back to you and talk about your backbone, which is Ashley. And I mean, she's been phenomenal. You are so good at obviously honoring her whenever we do anything. Like if you have an event, even Coach Show's book launch, you know, it was like, you know, thank Ashley, she got it all set up. But what is it what does it mean to have her as your partner in life? Because she is, man, like she completes you, you know, it's old Jerry Maguire thing, but yeah, just talk a little bit about that relationship and having a true partner in this life, because I think that's the one thing we all search for, and but you found yours.
Yeah, man, I'm so thankful for who she is as a person. We could not be more different. As you know, we are just complete and total opposites.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest, man, like when we first got married, I'll never forget this. So I had been really social. I got married at 30 years old. And in my 20s, man, I was just out. You know, I was just having a good time all of the time, all the time. And so for me, like she was this real steady force, which I really liked and appreciated. Like I really enjoyed our time together and time with the girls. Like I really valued that. But then Friday night would come around.
Yeah.
And I remember looking at her one night and I'm like, so is this how it is? Like, is this, you know, and I think maybe we were engaged or we had been dating a while. And I'm like, man, this is what we do on Fridays, I guess, is we just watch Disney movies with our kids and sit at home, like, you know, and Audrey and 5 or 3. And I just remember, like, it's just this moment. We're sitting in the living room. I remember like it was yesterday. And I guess Friday night looks different, like literally, you know, night and day different than the life that I've been living. And so in the beginning, there was part of that really challenged me.
Yeah.
The part of me that wanted to go out and have fun and live it up and be around a bunch of people. And today, like now more than ever, man, I just really find joy and great value in sitting at home and being with my family. And I'm thankful that my wife doesn't have that same thing in her where she wants to be out all the time. Like my wife is totally content to be with our kids and to be with me and to be at home.
Yeah.
And she's introverted. She's really steadfast. She's one of the few people I know that gets up the same time every day. It's 4:30. Doesn't matter what time she goes to bed. She's up at 4:30 to work out.
Yeah.
She's the most disciplined person that I know. She's highly detailed. She's just all the things that I'm not, candidly, you know. And you and I both married way up, man. So God bless Michelle Murray and Ashley Montgomery.
Oh my gosh, you were not joking about that one, but yeah, let's talk about the family. Like you said, being content and staying at home. So you have your youngest daughter, Olivia.
Yeah.
She is one, absolutely gorgeous and funny, but you've encouraged her to do some little videos. So we're going to take a look at just one of the videos that Jordan and his daughter Olivia have put together.
Chef Livy making cereal. Let's get to work. First thing I have to do is grab a bowl. This is not big enough. This is big, but it's not big enough. But this one's just right. Today we're making a Super Bowl of cereal. Let's go! First step is Honey Nut Cheerios. Strawberry Banana Cheerios. Whoops. Silly Rabbit chips are for Chef Livy. The rabbit's kind of weird. Rice checks are incredible. Top it off is Good Luck and Lucky Charms. Stir it up with a big spoon. This finishing touch is purple sprinkles. Before you eat, you make sure to pray. The first bite will change your life. All right, y'all. See you next time. Daddy, can we make another?
All right, so the Super Bowl, like that video with the Super Bowl, like the funniest thing was that, I mean, she was in it like she was on a cooking show, like she was putting it in, and then I just love how she topped it off with sprinkles, and then you know, hey, can we do it again? Like what? Why did you guys start doing those videos? How fun are they? And then what do you see her becoming in the future?
Well, first off, shout out to John Choate, who you know very well, who actually produces this podcast, who produces our podcast, who's done so much work with both of us. But John would come over to our house all the time. like in the early days to produce content. Like before I had an office, he'd come to our house. And so like our kids fell in love with John. They're like, this guy comes over and he makes all these videos for you. And I'd be in my office and they'd stumble in and be like, could we do a video? And we're like, well, maybe you can. And so it started with Audrey and Claire doing some stuff. And then Olivia, man, she, you know, she doesn't hate the spotlight. She's okay being out front, you know, and totally opposite than Ashley is. Like, I don't know if she's even my daughter because my wife's like, I'm introverted. She's extroverted. She's probably more like me. We just have fun with it, man. It's just it's a fun way to engage with her. And our girls love watching the videos. And then, you know, a cool way to encourage her that, hey, here's something that you're good at that, you know, that we find humor in.
Yeah.
So it's become a series now. It's called Chef Livy. Follow us on social media. You might see a Chef Livy episode. And usually she's cooking something that is highly caloric, very unhealthy, that oftentimes you would never even want to put in your mouth. So it's more entertaining than it is helpful.
I think she did one, was it with Skittles? And I was just like, dude, that's like a diabetic appetizer right there.
Straight heart attack. Immediate heart attack.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. It's we probably need to revisit what we're allowing her to make.
Well, you know, obviously, so you have Mac. He's almost a year old.
Yep.
And so how has it been for her, like being a big sister now? Because she's, you know, used to being the youngest.
I'm not sure she loves it. If we're being honest, she struggles with being a big sister. The big girls, you know, Audrey and Claire, they love, you know, being big sister. But it's been a challenge for Olivia. At one point, maybe Mac was like 3 months old, and she looks at Ashley, dead serious, you know, one day. She's like, why did you have Mac? Like, well, it was God's plan, so deal with it. So, but she's coming around. You know, Mac's almost 1. She's coming around. She's a bit more helpful than, you know, she used to be, but it's still a trip.
Oh my gosh, man. Oh, I love it.
She's nuts, man.
I love it. Oh gosh. Well, you know, we talked about this year for you and just being really, really busy. And I know there were a couple things that we did together when it came to the Iowa Swarm, obviously in this new world of NIL. It's made, I mean, honestly, it's made recruiting difficult. It's created different, I would say, situations when it comes to where an athlete will consider going to school, what coach he wants to play for, and those kind of things. But you've done a phenomenal job with the Swarm. Obviously, you know, working with men's and women's basketball, it's been great. Is there anything new? Like I said, I know last year I helped with a couple of them, but is there anything new that you guys have going on with the Swarm as we look to kind of continue down this NIL road?
Yeah, there's a ton happening. So first off, I'll give a shout out to Brad Heinrichs, who's the CEO of the Swarm. And Jane Oswald and Scott Brickman. So they are formally part of the Swarm, run the Swarm. I often get asked the question, do I run the Swarm?
Right.
You know, what's my formal involvement? I do not. I help out, and mainly on the men's basketball side of things. So we helped a little bit with football and, you know, women's basketball. But my relationship really started with Fran McCaffrey. We went to dinner one night. He's like, hey, do you think we do an event? Maybe raise some awareness. And so one thing turned into another, and now we've done several events. The most recent was at Keaton and Lauren Walker's house. They hosted a big event. We did a live auction and raised some money. You and I went to Dallas with like 35 Hawkeye fans. Watched Keegan play. So the Kings-Mavs game, we had a box, and then got to spend some time with Keegan on the court. He was really generous and gracious with his time. And so, and then there was last year there was the trip to New York City. You know, went to Madison Square Garden and did courtside seats in a game, you know, Iowa versus Duke. So there's been some cool stuff like that. This year we have the doubleheader in Des Moines.
Okay.
So the men's team plays Florida A&M. The women play Cleveland State.
Okay.
Doubleheader Saturday, December 16th. So we're doing some stuff there. We're working on some away trips, and then we also have some pregame, like locker room experiences for our home schedule that we're still ironing out. So there's a bunch of stuff happening. But I'll say this, man, you have been such a great supporter, and the boys. Like, dude, shout out to Chris Murray. I want to spend time on this for a second.
Okay.
Because last year, Chris could have gone to the league, could have gone to the NBA. And decided to come back. Would have for sure had a two-way contract and would have made hundreds of thousands of dollars. He didn't just come back. This is what I want to draw attention to. He didn't just come back to play, but he came back and attended all the team events, all the swarm events, contributed, supported. We asked him for his time, his energy, and he gave all of it to us.
Yeah.
Really to benefit his teammates and to benefit the program and to benefit the university at large. And so, man, here's a guy that could have been making tons of money in the NBA, decided to come back, steward his gifts,
Yeah.
give it a go for one more year. And I think, we all know how it ends. It obviously worked out for him.
Yeah. Yeah.
But he took a chance doing that. And I just think it's really cool that he helped to elevate the program and help his teammates.
Yeah.
When he could have been out there helping himself.
Yeah. I think obviously we know like the journey, like 4 years ago, they had one scholarship offer. They were in Florida,
So crazy.
4 years ago,
Crazy.
trying to figure out what they were going to do. And it was about this time when Fran really got interested and brought him up. But, I think the biggest thing is that they've always been team players. I think that's the one thing I love about them. And anything that would help a teammate, like they're definitely willing to do. And so, I appreciate that. But I would much rather Chris and Keegan be known for being good people, like you said, good stewards than basketball players. We're just blessed as parents that they can do a little bit of both, and they're solid. So, but thank you. Yeah, it's just been talk about your last year. Our last year has been
crazy.
And
here's the epitome of the last year. This is the epitome of the Murray family. There's a lot of stories that we love to tell.
Yeah,
one of those being like Chris gets drafted by the Blazers, and then the next day he's playing golf and looking for his whatever $3 golf ball for 10 minutes in the weeds. It's like, hey, you're gonna be all right.
Yeah,
go,
right.
Go play the next damn ball.
Yeah, right.
It's lost. It's $2 or whatever. Anyway, so there's a lot of stories, but I think that one of the stories that underscores how your family operates is Chris gets invited to the green room. So if you're not familiar with how the NBA draft works, they invite a certain amount of players to the green room who are for sure getting drafted. If you're a fringe player, then you don't get that invite. So Chris gets his invite. He knows he's going to get drafted. Most 21-year-old kids.
Oh, he was 22 at the time.
He's 22. Yeah, he's 22.
Everybody puts that against him because they're old.
They're old at 22. Isn't that crazy? But most 22-year-olds are like, yo, I'm going to the green room.
Right.
And I'm inviting my entourage and my family, and I'm going to be on TV, and I'm going to do it big. And instead, Chris is like, I'll just go to the hotel down the street with my closest friends and my family, and I'm going to celebrate with my people. I don't need to be out front.
Right.
And I know that comes from you and Michelle and the way that you raised the boys. And so it's just been cool to watch Chris and Keegan operate, all your kids, Demetrius and Kenna too, but to watch them operate with the pressure and the spotlight and still stay humble and do things, with humility. I mean, that's such a testament to parenting and also God's grace in their life.
Yeah, if you ask Chris, when Michelle and I were going through the whole maybe we're staying together, maybe we're not, we were like, man, how do we not mess you guys up? And only a way Chris could do it was he says, well, you almost did. And then he walks out the room. like that's our kids in a nutshell. Yeah. It's so funny, like, people will see, Keegan had a great year. I think Chris was going to have an unbelievable year too. But they're so different. And it's fun for us because like we see parts of them that everybody doesn't. They just see the outside. Yeah. But these two dudes, man, I tell you, it's going to be interesting because I always mess with Keegan whenever we're on FaceTime or we have a meeting. I'll always wear a Blazers shirt or hoodie or something. He's like, Dad, why are you wearing Blazer stuff? And I was like, because I got to support both of you. And then he starts going into, well, they're not making the playoffs. I'm like, bro, like, you don't know that? Like, come on, give your brother some, give him some love. He may, he's going to help elevate Portland just like you did Sacramento. But no, man, it's exciting. And, it's going to be great this year being able to watch them both play and play against each other. So,
well, I keep telling you that you and Michelle are two of the few people in the world that will ever know what it's like to have not one but two sons in the NBA.
Yeah, it is crazy.
At the same time. So that's a small fraternity of people that know what that's like.
No doubt. Well, hey, we always end the show rapid fire questions, and I got some good ones for you this time. All right. So, first one. If you were a dessert, what would you be?
Oh, man, that's an interesting question. Oh, I think I would be, if I was a dessert, what would I be? Well, if I let my daughter make it, I would be so highly caloric, extra sugar, super unhealthy. Man, I'd be so. I think I'd be like a rhubarb something or other, because not for everybody. You know, like rhubarb's either you like it or you hate it. It's an acquired taste. I think I'd be rhubarb pie. Rhubarb pie.
I'm gonna take chocolate mousse on that one.
Might need it.
All right, number 2. If you could compare yourself with any animal, which would it be and why?
These are the best questions. Man, I think I would be. Man, I'd love to say, like, you know what I want to say is I want to be like, I'd be a honey badger because I'm like scrappy. But I'm not near tough enough to be a honey badger. I'd be like a maybe the gazelle because so I'd be getting eaten up. Somewhere in between a honey badger and gazelle. What's up between that?
Wolverine. I don't know.
Wolverine. I'm not the king of the jungle. Not tough enough. But hopefully I wouldn't get eaten up. So whatever's in between that, a hyena.
I'd be a giant like panda because I would just sit back and like chewing on leaves. Like that's what I would be.
That's good. Panda and the hyena, man. And that's one of the best questions you've ever asked.
All right, well we got this one. All right, so this one might be the best one. If you had a pet parrot, what would you teach it to say?
I don't know where you're getting these questions. I would teach it to say, be quiet.
Yeah.
Because we have 4 children and it's never quiet. So if I could have a parrot that said, be quiet.
Yeah.
Repeatedly throughout the day so I don't have to say it, man, that'd be
yeah.
What would you teach a pet parrot to say?
Probably dad sleep. Because like now, dude, like it's honestly like I have to take a nap. Like I literally like the morning, you know how it is. You work out too. Like I'll work out and then we'll come in and do this, or I've got some other stuff, and then I'm like, I need an hour. Like I need a power nap during the day, and that's what, Michelle, can I come in the house? Dad sleep.
Dad
that's
sleep.
all, leave alone. So,
be quiet. Be quiet.
Be quiet. Be quiet. All right, man. So I want to thank you for coming on the show. But one of the things I also do is I always have a quote, and this quote from Nobel Prize winning humanitarian and nun, Mother Teresa, and it's, if you want to change the world, go home and love your family. And we've talked about that, and that's you. I think that, the way you love your family, the way you hold your family up, like if people don't know you, they, and they see that, it's like, yeah, this is a good dude. And I think because of that, because of the way you're grounded, you touch so many more people. And I just want to, thank you for coming on the show. And I really appreciate you. I appreciate you more as a friend than anything else, man, because, like I said, since you and I have reconnected, man, I mean, I consider you one of my best friends, and I know I've learned a lot from you, and I've grown a lot from you, and hopefully that continues to happen.
Yeah, right back at you, man. Like, I just think about the journey we've been on together and all the great conversations, all the things we share in common, and then a lot of things we don't share in common,
Yeah.
My daughters make cereal, yours play in the NBA. But the one thing that I think about, like, the quote that makes me think about you is like, you can pretend to care, but you can't pretend to show up. And you just have continually showed up for me in ordinary moments of life, but also in the big moments of life. You're always there to support, encourage, birthday, Father's Day, our adoption story, my wife's birthday. Like, you just are really intentional as a friend. And so that's what I'm so thankful for about our friendship, is the intentionality and the support that's gone into our friendship over the years, man. It means a lot.
Yeah, it goes both ways, man. So, well, I want to thank Wise Financial, Estella's Fresh Mex, Storyline Multimedia for making all this happen. And honestly, it wouldn't happen without you, the audience. So remember, you can always go to our YouTube channel, the Talk About Network, subscribe, give us a like, hit the notification button so you know when a new episode drops. And I'm Kenyon Murray, your host. Until next time. This podcast is sponsored by Storyline Multimedia. Storyline is an Iowa City-based media company that specializes in creating high-quality video, photo, and audio productions for local businesses. Not only that, but they also produce a number of podcasts, including this one. So if you're interested in sharing the story of your business with the world, contact them today by visiting StorylineMultimedia.com. And remember, your story matters.